Well, hello, Cindy here, Bucket List Coach, web show, aviation, and lifestyle podcast. So this show has been around since 2017. So we have two dates. We have the day we're born, the day that we pass away. What are you doing in between that time? And today we're talking about the tribute to the heroes of freedom, Memorial Day. Really, what Memorial Day means to me and to my friend Michael. So, Navy veteran Mike Martin. Wow, I've known each other 2011, 12, right?
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Well, I'm going to pop off. I'm going to share this on a couple podcasts here on Facebook. Go ahead and talk for a minute or two on what today means to you, and I'll be right back.
All right. Thanks a lot, folks. I am a Navy veteran, served in Vietnam many years ago. Obviously, be it during Vietnam, we lost a lot of folks, but the real meaning of Memorial Day, as established by Congress, is to honor those that have served and lost their lives. They paid the total price, which is what we do when we enlist. We basically sign a blank check up to and including our lives to protect the freedoms that we have here in this great country. So it's been a long journey for many different people over the different conflicts that have occurred in this country, and still going on today for whatever the various reasons may be. You know, there's always the good, the bad, and the ugly. I want to share a thought with you, though, that I found. It was very interesting because it's a quote, and for those of you that know, then stick it away. The willingness with which our people are likely to serve in any war, no matter how justified, shall be directly proportional to how they perceive the veterans of earlier war were treated and appreciated by their nation. Now, most people are totally surprised when they find out who said that. And I've had all different kinds of guesses from current politicians to early in this century, going back to our founding fathers. And it's actually that quote and those words were said by the most qualified soldier of the time who established the freedom that we get to enjoy in this country.
Yes.
That was George Washington that said that. Now think about that just for a second. I mean, he talks about how veterans are perceived even back then. Because back then people were risking their lives then because they were of who they were fighting, because they would have been seen as traitors. So it's quite a journey to be looking at something like that. So remember that this is a day of remembrance, not for those that are still with us today, but for those that passed in all the succeeding wars up to and including those serving on active duty today in a combat zone. Go ahead, Sid.
Well, let's take a moment of silence. Okay, tell your story.
Well, my story is pretty simplistic. Graduated from high school in June of 1965 on a Friday. I was already 18 years old at that time. The very next Monday, I started at the University of Arizona in Tucson, Arizona. And Thursday of that very first week, I got home to check the mail, and guess what's sitting there? letter from our wonderful government saying, "Greetings, you are hereby ordered for induction into the service." Blah,
Wow.
blah, blah, blah. Well, lucky for me, it was summer school that I had started in. So it's a very accelerated time frame. It was about 4 weeks, I believe, before I had to report to the draft board. And when I finally reported, because of the rules at that time, they had to give me a deferment because I was in college. So the guy that was ahead of the draft board at the time got a little annoyed when he saw that, and he said, "Look over there, Mister Martin. Look over there. See that guy wearing that green uniform over there? He says that's what you're going to be wearing 1 year from now after this deferment runs out." So I'm thinking to myself, "Oh, that's not very good." Not that I didn't want to serve. I actually, if I was going to serve, because I was an Air Force brat, I'd
Oh,
already,
yeah.
I had already done a bunch of years going around at various bases, not only
Mhm.
here in the United States, but I lived in France, I lived in Morocco in North Africa, I lived all over the place. But I knew the difference that if I was going to go in, I wanted to go in as an officer, not as an enlisted guy. Nothing wrong against the enlisted guy. I just knew that being an officer had certain perks. And it didn't matter what branch you were in, being an officer is always better. So I was able to go to the Navy Reserve in Tucson, Arizona. I told the chief what I was looking for, and he says, "Well, here, sign here. We'll keep you in college till you get your degree, and if you sign this document over here," he said, "you just ask me one question: what's your scheduled graduation date?" And he wrote that down on this piece of paper, and he said, "Sign at the bottom." He said, "As long as you meet or beat that date, we'll send you to officer candidate school." And then that's what I did. I got commissioned as an officer in late 1968, then off to a school for supply corps officers, and then straight into Vietnam, not on board a ship, but on what they called the Naval Support Activity in Da Nang. And I headed up, I was a logistics officer there, did a lot of very interesting things for me at that time. I was all of 22 years old by then.
Oh, wow.
And I turned 23 about 2 months after I arrived in Vietnam. Um, Unfortunately for me, it's some of the guys that I went through OCS and through the supply school lost their lives in Vietnam. Uh, One on a helicopter crash, not due to the enemy, but due to a mechanical malfunction. And then I had because I was an officer, I was in charge of men. I had to put some people in assignments that caused, or there were some accidents as well, and unfortunately, those lives are on my mind every day because I'm the one that assigned them the jobs that then they ended up losing their lives under. Uh, so to me, it's a very personal thing, very personal. Uh, we lose men and women in combat, you know, situations even today, sometimes every day. I mean, the numbers are dwindling because of the type of conflicts that we're in today. But over the years, I mean, stop and think about this. Vietnam, for me, 58,479 names are inscribed on the Vietnam Memorial Wall.
Oh, my Lord mercy.
Now, here's the disturbing part about it, or think about this. 33,103 of those 58 were 18 years old.
Oh, my God.
Now, when you get dissected even further, and we found most of the young men that had forged their signatures and gotten in, but there were 12 who were 17 years old. There were 5 that were 16 years old, and there was one young man from Massachusetts that was 15 years old.
Oh, boy.
Now, I want to tell you, he may have been 15 at his chronological age, but I've seen pictures of this young man. He looked like he was 26. So, you never can tell. Then I've had some people, attack me and say, well, how could the government screw up so bad and let those people in? And I just ask them one question. I say, excuse me, have you ever heard of the crime called forgery?
Mm-hmm.
And it just sort of shuts them up in a real hurry because they don't comprehend. But here's the interesting part. The government won't tell me two numbers. One of those numbers is how many did they find and kick out? They won't tell me that number. And then they won't tell me of those that they kicked out, how many of them, when they turned of legal age, came back and signed up anyway. They won't tell me that number either.
Mm. That's really interesting. I never knew that. Wow.
So there's aspects to this whole thing. Now, one other element that's a very interesting to me of the 58,479, they died in a combat zone. Yes, but only 42,000 and change died at the hands of the enemy. So what does that leave? That leaves a whole bunch of others, over 10,000, that died due to non-combat related situations. Car or truck accidents, airplane, helicopter crashes, something as stupid as a poisonous spider or poisonous snake bites. Friendly fire, always an element, no matter what war it was. And then we all come back changed. The degree of change is only relative to what was seen in the eyes of each of those who participated in the combat situation. So even those of us that were rear area support guys, we saw things, but we just saw things from a different perspective. And it can have an impact on all of that. Hopefully that shares a little bit with you.
Wow. Oh, man. So if anybody has any comments, if you're a Navy veteran or if you want to just say hello to Mike Martin, you could actually go here either on Facebook or on YouTube in the chat. So we have Spencer, Huntington Beach, California. Thank you for being here. So we're right at 12 minutes. Did you want to go another 10 minutes or do you want
Sure. Go, whatever. Any questions, just ask me. I got, here's a couple of other things. The oldest vet in Vietnam, 62 years old. There were 31 sets of brothers, 31 sets of parents lost 2 sons or more. 244 soldiers were awarded the Medal of Honor, 153 on the wall. The most casualties we had in a single day in Vietnam was during Tet, where we had January 31st, we had 245 in one day. And the biggest month was May of 68, where we had 2,415 in just the 1 month. Wow. So it's all very interesting. Many of the different situations from the northernmost part of South Vietnam, which is where I was. I was up in the I Corps area, or Da Nang, which was a port city. Da Nang and Cam Ranh Bay were the two big man-made ports constructed by the Navy Seabees, where the ships that were bringing cargo from the United States, most of those ships came out of Long Beach or Oakland to bring in supplies to Vietnam. The ammo ships came out of Concord, California, and Seal Beach, where the big ammo dumps were.
Wow.
It was interesting, very interesting time over there. And the other interesting part, I would just share in some of the names that have been added to the wall over time, is that when the war ended in May of 75, there were 2,538 MIAs, missing in action. Now, since then, over the last 50 years, they've found about 900 of those missing, when the number to MIAs is down to around 1,600 and change now. Wow. So all those families have been able to get closure. And the only thing I could share with you is that from my perspective, that that I felt very deeply, that when a young man or young woman goes off into combat, remember, folks, it is not just them that are going into combat. The whole family literally goes to combat. Not in a literal sense, but in a philosophical kind of a way. Trying to stay in touch. And back in Vietnam, we didn't have, I stayed at the outside the commissary. We had a pay phone where we tried to call at times. Others had access to shortwave radio. The combat guys, they wrote letters on the inside of C ration boxes, and they learned how to be able to fold them and be able to send these letters back and forth. It's quite an amazing story, some of them, when you hear some of these guys who are willing to talk about it. And anybody that's out there that's listening, if you would like me to come to a classroom or something like that, please reach out through Facebook or whatever to get a hold of me to do that. And I can do talks about the wall and all my experiences, but it's a living history lesson. And if you want more lessons, folks, go to the Library of Congress, the Veterans History Project.
Oh, thank you for that information. So we're going to close out in a few minutes. Go ahead and do a tribute to those you want to talk about today, and then I'll do my tribute as well.
Okay. Well, I want to especially reach out to all those families that are still with us today that have lost someone over the course of whatever conflict it happens to be. I know how painful it can be when you have a loss. That's human nature. It doesn't matter where the loss occurred. But when it's in a faraway land, it's even more painful. And listening and seeing some of the stories that I see, I just saw one the other day where a sergeant was escorting his soldier home, and he was on the plane, and the flight attendant told the captain, and et cetera, and all these different things. And they were able to make arrangements. Just for me to tell that story, it gets to me. So prayers to all of those that have lost, have served, and paid the ultimate price to help preserve this great country. Thank you.
And one thing before I do my tribute, it's so important to know the difference between Veterans Day and Memorial Day. Go ahead and cover that real quick, and then I'll do my tribute.
Sure. I'm a lot of folks, unfortunately, all holidays today in this country get commercialized, and the focus is driving commercial traffic. So that means they target and use the word veteran. And yes, all the veterans should get whatever they can get. I don't belittle that at all. But Veterans Day, to remember those that are still with us today or still serving today, is Veterans Day, not Memorial Day. Today, we're paying homage, tribute, and thanks to those heroes that served and paid the ultimate price to protect this great country. Two very distinct roles for those 2 days.
Okay, I'll do my tribute. Stephen Cajun Dabagno. Make sure that you check out his page. I want to do a big love to his family, and that's Cajun's Aviation Dream. And very unfortunate, he lost his life doing a maneuver in Nevada as a Thunderbird. But please, if you know anybody who always wanted to learn to fly and you live here in Southern California, or you go to the EAA AirVenture every year in Oshkosh, the Cajun'sAviationDream.org is amazing. So make sure to reach out to them. And a big prayer to everybody who has been touched by this amazing aviator. And anything else, you want to do a shout out to your website or to your Facebook page so anybody can connect with you for any speaking engagements?
Yeah, anybody can reach out to me at MikeMartinCharlie3.com. Mike Martin C3.com. And on Facebook, it's Ask Mike Martin.
And thank you so much for everybody who tuned in today. Thank you, Mike Martin, tuning in from Houston, Texas. And I'm here in Southern California. And make sure to live your life paying it forward to others. And celebrate Memorial Day by connecting with people who have lost a loved one. Make a difference today. We'll see you here just on the other side.
Amen.